The music ceased. The entire ballroom froze as she appeared, pregnant, elegant, arm in arm with a man many believed to be lost to the world. César, the fashion mogul, dropped his glass before he could even mask his shock. That night, he brought his mistress to the gala, but watched his wife walk through the door with another man, and nothing he had built, power, fame, control, would be able to stop what was coming next. The Founders' Fashion Gala was the pinnacle of the creative elite. Flashing lights, impossible gowns, crystal flutes. At the center of attention, César Montero. Owner of Maison Montero, he was more than a magnate. He was the face of an era. By his side, Camila Queiroz, young, daring, the new fashion icon of social media. The two moved as if they knew all eyes were on them. And they were, until the main entrance swung open. The chatter died. The pianist missed a note, and then she walked in, Helena Santos, pregnant, radiant, in a sapphire gown that seemed to shimmer under the chandeliers. But it wasn't just her presence that cut through the air like glass. It was the man beside her. Arthur Almeida. The legendary designer César had supposedly ruined years ago. César's glass slipped. It shattered on the marble. And the world, for a moment, stopped spinning. Helena was always the type who sewed her own dresses, wrote cards by hand, and remembered the names of the building's doormen. When she met César, he was still a designer burdened by debts and an excess of ideas. She believed in him when no one else did, in the sketches scattered across the floor, in the sleepless nights, in the dream of launching their own brand. They married young, on a simple rooftop, adorned with lights strung by friends. For years, they subsisted on rice and eggs, fueled by ambitious goals. Helena managed the accounting, scheduled meetings, and brewed coffee for investors. It was she who smiled behind the scenes, while César basked in the spotlight during interviews. With success came international shows, million-dollar contracts, and dinners with people she no longer recognized. Gradually, he stopped consulting her. Then, he stopped listening. Finally, he stopped seeing her. When she discovered she was pregnant, Helena nearly wept with joy. She thought it would reconnect them, reignite something dormant. She kept the secret for a few days, imagining a special way to tell him. At his birthday dinner, holding César's hand beneath the table, she whispered, "We're going to have a baby." He smiled, but not genuinely. He mumbled "What lovely news," kissed her forehead, and returned to his phone. Instead of planning their future, he messaged his assistant. She tried not to dwell on it. She told herself it was the stress, the timing, that he would come around. But days turned into weeks, and nothing changed. César stayed out more and more. Secret events, last-minute meetings, words grew scarce, gazes empty, and when rumors of Camila Queiroz began to circulate in the social columns, Helena pretended not to read them. Until she stopped pretending. One morning, drinking coffee alone, she saw the official post, César and Camila, at the launch of the new collection. The most iconic couple in contemporary fashion, the caption read. She still wore her wedding ring. He didn't. It was there that everything began to crumble. What Helena desired couldn't be displayed in a shop window. It wasn't about magazine covers or front-row seats at Milan Fashion Week. She longed for what her parents had, a tranquil home, filled with respect. She dreamt of Sundays with freshly brewed coffee, toys scattered across the living room, and a man who came home, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. For a while, she believed that was what she and César were building. Even when he started traveling too much, she still left notes in his suitcase. Even when he forgot birthdays, she made excuses for him. Even when his assistant started calling instead of him, she tried to understand. But everything changed rapidly. Social media filled with photos featuring Camila at events, backstage, dinners. It was as if Helena had never existed. Comments hailed Camila as the new muse, ideal companion, the missing energy for the fashion genius. Helena, 4 months pregnant, read it all in silence, without the strength to respond, without the courage to react. At the clinic, Caesar missed appointments. Always an elegant justification. Helena arrived alone, answered the doctor's questions, and smiled politely. No one there knew she was his wife, because, truthfully, she wasn't even sure herself anymore. One evening, lying on the couch with swollen feet and the TV on silently, a news story flashed across the screen. Cesar Montero will take Camila Queiroz to the Founders Gala, the most prestigious event in Brazilian haute couture. The report detailed Camila's dress, the lavish decor, the presence of ambassadors and CEOs. At no point was Helena's name mentioned. The realization dawned slowly. This wasn't just a phase. It wasn't distraction or fatigue or pressure. He was silently erasing her existence. That night, Helena entered the room she had set aside for the baby. The walls were bare. Nothing bought, nothing chosen, just stacked boxes. She sat on the cold floor and leaned her head against the wall. Did she still love him? She didn't know. But she loved herself enough to know that this wasn't fair. And he still thought he could fix everything with a grand gesture, a vague social media post, or an expensive gift. He thought, but she was starting to doubt. On the night of the gala, the city was enveloped in a fine mist. From the large windows of her apartment, Helena could see the distant lights of the ballrooms where she had once been a constant presence. Not as a star, but as part of the machinery that made everything work. She was in her pajamas, sitting on the floor of the baby's room, knees bent, hands resting on her 6-month belly. The silence was thick, but not comforting. It was the kind of silence that screamed. The navy blue dress she had bought months earlier for an event that never materialized still hung in the closet. She thought about donating it, tearing it, but she couldn't bring herself to touch it. It felt like a memory of someone she no longer was. The doorbell didn't ring. Her phone didn't vibrate. No messages, no apologies. Cesar was out there, smiling beside Camila, posing for photos under the flashes. And she was here, invisible. She had no appetite for dinner. There was nothing left to explain to herself. Even the internal excuses had run dry. He's under pressure. He's just confused. When the baby is born, everything will change. Nothing changed. Only her. Helena lay on the cold floor and stared at the white ceiling. Her tears weren't dramatic. They were dry, slow, almost indifferent, as if her body was simply concluding the mourning for something that had ended long ago, but her heart refused to accept. That night she thought, maybe I've disappeared. Maybe I truly don't matter. It was then that her phone vibrated. A notification, not from social media, not from the clinic. A direct message from someone she hadn't seen in 4 years. Helena, it's Arthur. I know tonight isn't easy, but there are things you need to know. Can we talk? I can take you there if you want. You shouldn't go through this alone. Arthur Almeida, the man Cesar used to call the genius behind the curtains. A brilliant designer, creator of Maison Montero's first collections, until he mysteriously vanished in a hushed scandal. She read the message twice, 3 times. Her heart raced. Why was he writing now? What did he know? And why would he offer something so kind? If you don't want to go alone, I'll accompany you. But the choice is yours. She looked at her reflection in the window. She was pale, swollen, but alive. Still there, still whole, even if cracked inside. She didn't reply. But for the first time in months, something pulsed within her, a spark, the possibility of being seen, of not hiding, of no longer accepting the role of forgotten woman while the world applauded the farce of the man she helped build. She returned to the bedroom, switched on the soft yellow light of the bedside lamp, and opened the closet. She touched the blue dress. It still fit. It was still hers. And as she laid it on the bed, Helena didn't know exactly what she would do that night, but she knew what she wouldn't do anymore. Extinguish herself to protect the ego of someone who no longer cared about who she was. Have you ever felt like you vanished within your own life? Like one day you simply stopped being seen? If so, answer me with a yes in the comments. I read every single one, and sometimes just knowing someone else went through the same thing helps us keep standing. Helena stood for a while, gazing at the dress on the bed. The fabric felt like another skin, one she had stopped wearing. She ran her hand over the waistline seam. There, her belly was already visible, strong, present, a sign that life moved forward, even when everything around seemed paralyzed. In the mirror, she saw her makeup-free face, tired eyes, hair haphazardly tied back. But there was something there, a quiet resolve, a woman who, though wounded, was still standing. She picked up her phone. Her hands trembled. She typed a message to Arthur. "Can you pick me up in 40 minutes? She didn't explain. She didn't justify. She just sent it. In the bathroom, Helena washed her face, applied lipstick, not the vibrant red of Cesar's era, but a vintage wine shade forgotten at the bottom of a drawer. She tied her hair into a simple bun and slipped into the blue dress. The dress still fit her well. It didn't hide her belly, and she didn't want to hide it. She slowly zipped it up as if stitching together a new version of herself. When Arthur rang the doorbell, she walked calmly to the door, and there he was. Dark suit, serene face, direct gaze. There was no judgment, no pity, just presence. "You don't have to do this," he said, "but if you do, let it be for yourself." Helena took a deep breath. "I don't know what will happen there." "Neither do I," he replied. "But today, I want to be in the place where I was erased. Only this time, for myself." He smiled. Without another word, he offered his arm. Helena turned off the apartment lights, locked the door, and descended. For the first time in months, she didn't feel small. She didn't feel weak. She didn't know if she was ready, but for the first time, she wanted to try. The black car glided through the illuminated avenues of São Paulo as Helena watched the neon signs pass by the window. Every corner seemed to hold a memory, a dinner, a promise, a lie she pretended not to hear. Beside her, Arthur said nothing, and that silence wasn't heavy. It was a safe space, a place where she didn't have to be strong all the time. When they arrived at the event venue, the security guards opened the car door. The press, distracted by arriving celebrities, took a few seconds to notice. But then they saw flashes, muffled shouts, photographers swarming, a pregnant woman in an intense blue dress stepping out of the car beside a man who seemed to have risen from the ashes. "Is that her?" they whispered. "It's Helena Santos. And that's Arthur Almeida. My God!" Helena felt the ground beneath her heels. The entrance was long, with a velvet carpet that seemed to stretch into infinity. She didn't grip Arthur's arm tightly. She didn't hesitate. Each step was a silent affirmation. "I exist. I am here." Inside, guests turned, like a domino effect. Murmurs spread, and in the center of the ballroom, illuminated by spotlights, stood Cesar. He held a glass. Beside him, Camilla laughed at something he had just said. But when his eyes met Helena's, his expression shattered. The glass fell. Crystals splintered against the floor. She kept walking. She wasn't looking for reactions. She didn't want drama. She didn't want revenge. She just wanted to be seen. And at that instant, without uttering a word, it was as if the entire ballroom heard the cry she had suffocated for months. Helena walked through the ballroom as if traversing her own past. The chandeliers hung above her head like silent judgments. She recognized faces. Cesar's business partners, former employees, journalists who wrote about his home, but never about her absence. All now watched her as if they were seeing a ghost. Internally, she wasn't just resolute, she was also afraid. What if all this was a mistake? What if, in the end, she was clinging to a futile hope? What if, in the next minute, someone reminded her how disposable she had been? They stopped in front of a reserved table in the corner of the room. Arthur pulled out a chair. Helena thanked him with a discreet nod. She didn't want to draw more attention. She just wanted to keep breathing. Cesar was still on the other side, motionless. Camilla tried to understand what was happening, but he didn't respond. It was as if the ground had opened beneath his feet. Helena picked up a glass of water. Her hands trembled. "You came all this way. Now what?" Arthur, ever attentive, leaned in slowly. "If you want to leave, just say the word." She shook her head. "No, I need to be here, even if it's just for 10 minutes. He nodded. "Sometimes, just being present is all we need to do." She smiled almost imperceptibly. She was exhausted, but somehow whole. It was then that a shadow approached. It was Cesar, alone, tense, but still with that air of someone who believes they can control any room. He stopped a few feet away. "Helena." She raised her eyes. For a second she thought of everything she wanted to say. Every night, alone. Every doctor's appointment without him. Every silence that hurt more than words. But she swallowed it all, because this was not a place for vengeance. It was a place for liberation. And there was something she needed to do. Something that had been building up for months. But not with a scream, nor with humiliation, with clarity. Cesar stood before her as if still believing he was in control. He was as elegant as ever, tailored suit, perfectly styled hair, a hesitant smile that blended charm and desperation. "I didn't know you were coming," he said softly, trying to appear calm. Helena placed the glass of water on the table, met his gaze, and responded with a serenity that cut deeper than anger. "I know." Arthur remained silent beside her, neither standing nor interfering. He was not a shield, nor an obstacle. He was presence. Cesar hesitated. "I wanted to talk. In private." Helena nodded. She stood up, adjusted the dress over her belly, and walked beside him to a more secluded corner of the gallery, where some modern artworks adorned the wall. No one there would overhear, but everyone noticed. He spoke first. "I made a mistake, Helena. I got lost in all of this, in the success, the exposure. I just wanted to build something grand." She interrupted him gently. "And to do that, you destroyed me." Cesar swallowed hard. "I never meant to hurt you." "But you did hurt me. And it wasn't just the betrayal, Cesar. It was how you erased my existence, as if I had never been a part of any of this. As if I were a rough draft you could crumple to make space for your new version." He tried to step closer. His eyes were moist. "Give me a chance to fix things." She took a step back. "I'm not here for revenge. I didn't come to humiliate you. I came because I needed to remind myself that I am still alive, that I am still someone, that the fact that you don't see me doesn't make me invisible." Cesar lowered his gaze. For the first time in years, he seemed small. It was then that Helena took an envelope from her purse. "Here are the divorce papers. I've already reviewed them with my lawyer. No demands, no blackmail, just peace." He held the envelope as if it were burning charcoal. "Do you hate me?" She looked at him with unexpected tenderness. "No, I just stopped waiting for you." That sentence fell between them like a final judgment. Cesar looked at the envelope, then at Helena, but there was no longer any plea. Only silence. A silence he had once used as a weapon, now returned as an answer. She turned, walked back to Arthur, who was waiting for her, standing. She didn't say anything, but when his arm found hers again, she smiled, not from relief, but from presence. She had returned to herself, and she no longer needed anyone to recognize her, because finally she saw herself. Months passed since that night. The headlines cooled, the photos vanished from social media. The glow of the scandal faded, as it always does, but within Helena, something remained lit. She gave birth on a cloudy September Sunday. The baby arrived unhurriedly, with a gentle cry and watchful eyes. Lucas. She held him in her arms and felt that for the first time in a long while the world made sense. Not the world outside, her own. Arthur visited discreetly on the third day. He brought a small bouquet and a children's storybook with a simple dedication. for when he wants to hear stories of courage. César appeared a week later. He brought expensive flowers and a shamed look. He held Lucas in his arms, his hands trembling. They didn't speak of the past. She didn't demand anything. He didn't promise anything. But there was something new in the air. Humility. Helena no longer expected miracles. She knew some things don't come back. But she also knew that others could begin, slowly, without fanfare. The apartment now had pictures on the walls and the crib assembled in the corner of the bedroom. Sometimes she would wake up in the middle of the night just to watch Lucas sleep. It was as if the whole world fit in that dimly lit room with soft breathing. She began working with other women in similar situations. She told her story once, her voice trembling, then again with firmness. And she realized what hurt the most was now a bridge. One morning, sipping cinnamon coffee and warm bread, Helena looked out the window. The city pulsed as always, cars, horns, urgency. But within her, there was silence. The good kind, the kind that comes when you find yourself after being lost for so long. She didn't know what was coming, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid. Because she didn't conquer the world, but she conquered what was inside her. Helena learned that not all pain leaves a visible scar. Some hide in automatic gestures, in silent nights, in messages you write but never send. What hurt most wasn't César's betrayal. It was realizing that, little by little, she was fading away. Trying to be the woman he desired, trying to fit into the space he left. Trying not to bother, not to demand, not to be too much. She stopped seeing herself to continue being seen by him. And it was in this self-abandonment that she almost disappeared. But by standing up that night, by putting on the blue dress and taking each step with resolve, Helena rescued something she didn't even know she had lost, her own voice. Today, she knows she doesn't need to prove anything to anyone, that she is no less a woman for having been left, that she is no less strong for having cried in silence. She discovered that starting over is not a sign of weakness. It is pure courage. And perhaps you've felt this too. Perhaps you've tried to be everything for someone, and even so, it wasn't enough. Perhaps you are exactly in that place right now. And if you are, listen closely. You are not alone. You are not small, and your story can still turn around. Because it's not the end that defines you. It's what you do with it. If this story touched you in any way, leave a like here. It's a simple way to tell me it's worth continuing to tell stories like this. Tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. I read all of them with care, and I always respond to those who take a moment to chat with me here in the videos. And if you believe in the power of new beginnings, of real and emotional stories, subscribe to the channel. There's still so much beautiful journey to share with you. Don't leave yet. Choose one of the 2 stories I've left on screen. I'll see you in the next video.